Hi, my name's Ellie Feasy. I'm a GP Link family support worker with Devon Family Resource and Exeter Community Initiatives.
Hi, I'm Anna Slade. I'm a family support worker as well at Devon Family Resource with Exeter Community Initiatives. We've both joined to do this Zoom video today to talk a little bit about challenging behaviours and how to de-escalate them. We're in a time of very, very difficult situations in the house. It can get really claustrophobic. We haven't got the normal access to our needs that we would normally be able to do. So things are rising. We're aware that people are starting to really struggle where they might not have before. So we're going to talk you through a few things that we found quite helpful. We're going to start by talking about de-escalation strategies. This is going to be a little bit broad, so you might need to kind of tweak them to suit your family. We're going to talk about a safety plan and then longer term thinking on how we can make more positive outcomes.
Yeah, perfect. I think that firstly it's worth saying that challenging behaviour should be seen as behaviours that challenge us as a carer to find a solution, and it's not about that behaviour that is being deliberately difficult or defiant. The child isn't doing that on purpose. It's a form of communication. They're wanting
as much
their
as it
needs
might
met.
feel like they are at times.
Yeah. It might feel a bit malicious. It's not. So yeah, I'll talk you through a couple of scenarios and ways that you can respond to that appropriately that might stop things from escalating. So the first thing, and I think it's more common to talk about, is verbal outbursts and verbal aggression. I think the most important thing, if your child, there's a trigger or something happens, they start to not think very logically, so they start shouting and being quite aggressive verbally towards you. The first thing I think that's really, really important to sort of have a look at and assess is your environment. You know, if you've got a telly blasting in the background whilst your child is shouting at you, it might be an idea to put that telly on mute. You know, also check if there's lots of other people in that room, if there's siblings, if there's other household members. You know, just maybe say, I think me and so would like a bit of space now.
Yeah.
So everyone leaves. And that can be something that's discussed beforehand with other family members if it's something that happens quite often. You know, there's things that you can put in place which are more preventative. Also making sure the environment's safe as well, that there's not lots of obstacles in the way, and there's physical space and distance between you and the young person that's displaying that behaviour.
An escape route, the door. It's good to assess where things are, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And also I think the second thing is to be aware of yourself. How are you coming across to that young person? Are you standing confrontationally and staring directly at them? That might be something that aggravates the situation even more. You've got to be present, calm, listening, check your breathing. Also slow down your verbal communication and really reduce it. You know, only maybe only one word answers, maybe nothing at all for a bit. Just show that you're listening actively. The way that you would do that would be to I guess if they're saying something and they're explaining why they are angry, you repeat it back.
Show you've understood their point.
And then I guess if that's worked and they do start to come down,
great.
job's done.
We're done here.
No, it would be a case of just, don't try and fix that now. Don't try and
don't address it.
Just distract, something they're interested in, a video game they were playing earlier, talk about it. Do you want to go and do some colouring, something? Just completely get out of that situation and just reset. I think parents will naturally have an expectation that they'll want to talk about it and they'll want to fix it straight after, and you've got that expectation of how it's going to go. You've just got to put that to one side, I think, in that kind of situation. So I guess it's probably a good time to talk about if it doesn't go that way and things escalate even further. Physical aggression.
So yeah, if during the verbal kind of intense exchange you're not managing to kind of distract and it's just not working, you can see that kind of heightened behavior rising, then there are a few things you can do, mainly to think about safety, because at this point that person is not going to be accepting a message verbally, they're not going to be ready to fix things, they are stuck and they don't know how to get back down either, so they're feeling really uneasy, anxious, and you are the person there that's going to be able to direct how they can sort of get back down to a safer place for themselves and for everybody else. One of the things to be aware of is what is called the fighting arc. So that is your kind of area, the space between you, being able to, if you're in a small space, that is difficult, you're going to need to step back, take yourself into another room. You can explain that to them very gently, but again, you're trying to reduce as much communication as possible. So you might just say, I'm just taking a step back to keep you and me safe, and that would be it. Another thing that really won't help is saying, calm down, and we know that from being in a stressful situation ourselves. It's the opposite of what you are able to do, so there is no point saying it, because if that worked we wouldn't be here and none of this would be relevant. Yeah, at this point, just remember you cannot reason with this person. They are too far beyond it. There will be a time for reasoning, it's not now. Yeah, main concern is the safety of you and others around you. So you might be in a household with siblings, with a partner, with friends, you know, it could be any situation. You need to think about how are you going to keep you and the person struggling safe and the other people around you. So there might have been a bit of prep work. Again, like Ellie said, if this has been regular, you're going to be kind of used to this situation happening. And so you might have a little bit of a plan in place. It might just be that the young people know to go to their bedrooms, take themselves away, to just turn around and do an activity and ignore. It depends what your options are. Obviously not everyone has exactly the same layout, the same environment, so that's got to be tailored a little bit to what you've got available to you.
Yeah, I think that's something also that to really kind of amplify is that we're just giving a rough idea. This, you know, you've got to tailor it depending on your situation.
So yeah, I think ensuring time and space. So we've talked about space, but time as well. So that person is here and they're stressed and they can't handle it. And I think you cannot fit to a schedule anymore. At this point, if you were trying to get them into the car for the food shop or whatever it was, you've got to accept in yourself that you might not be able to do that in the time you thought, and take a step back and breathe and just work with what you have available to you at that point, I think. So that's another good point, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Change of faith, again, that might be difficult. It depends if you're raising as a single parent, if the other person is at work or not there. But change of faith with someone who is confident and safe. You can't, you know, your children won't be able to do that. But if you've got someone available who can just break down that kind of conflict that you're having with the other person, then you could maybe ask them to come in. But we understand that isn't always available, and sometimes you are really struggling on your own with this. I guess, yeah, so it's space, breathing, safety. Can you get out? Can you get others out? Communicate that to them so it's not a shock and there's no sudden movements, but keep it very, very simple. And if that doesn't work, then you're going to need to think about a safety plan. And as we've said, it's going to be tailored to you, but there's some basic things that you kind of can follow with that, isn't there?
Yeah, so if these strategies aren't working, and things do continue to escalate, you've got to have sort of a set thing in place that you can refer to keep yourself safe and to keep other people in your household safe. So I guess the first thing, if it is real violent aggression and you do not know how to de-escalate that, it's beyond that point, I think it's really important that you consider and you think about calling the police. People are often really scared of that idea of, you know, it feels as though you're failing, but you're not. You're just getting someone in that is trained in these situations to support and de-escalate and mediate as well. You know, they're not going to think that you're wasting their time. I think people sometimes think, oh, but the violence is happening between me and a young child. But it doesn't matter who's doing it. It's
and it's not just for you, is it? It's for them. You're doing it for them.
Because the longer they're sort of in these situations, I guess the more damaging long term that's going to be, and the more prolific and more often these events are going to occur if they don't see that there is actually a consequence. One thing that is worth noting is if you do say you're going to call the police or you give that warning, it's important that you then do follow through and it's not an empty threat.
Absolutely.
Because then that can lead to, you know, other incidents happening.
And they're going to challenge you if they know you're going to not do it. They're just going to push and push just to prove that you're not, and it just rises even more then, doesn't it?
And I mean, it's silly really, I started that on the police. That is almost a last resort. I guess other things that you can do before that point is make sure, you know, when you feel a situation is going to get out of hand, having your keys on you, having your phone on you, being ready to and prepared if you have to, and if it's safe to do so, to just leave the property, not go far, just stand outside and just get that proper physical space.
And witnesses as well, I think, isn't it? If you go outside, you're more likely to have people who can see what's happening, and the young person will know that. And there's that power in the house, isn't there? And I think you take it outside, and often someone behaves quite differently when there's other people around who can kind of observe it.
Also, I think it's important if you've got I mean, obviously it depends on where you are and what your personal situation is, but if you've got a good relationship with your neighbours and your like immediate community around you, to just inform them, you know, if you hear out and you hear something and it's not calming down, say after maybe 20-30 minutes, if you could call 101 or something for us, that would be really great if we've not managed to already. And just making people aware, I think, is the most important thing. It's really difficult when you're stuck in that environment. So the more people that know about the situation, I think the better, really.
Yeah, definitely. So that is our kind of immediate response to things where there's challenging behaviours and you're starting to feel like you might not be able to keep the control anymore or be able to sort of see an end to it. That's our kind of guidance. But there's also things that you can do that are really positive on the longer term kind of support. So obviously at the moment we are in such a difficult situation, it's really hard even to reach out for some support. So we understand that where the normally
services aren't happening,
are they? Yeah, absolutely. So we're not in the perfect situation for this, but we can do our best. I'm just reading my notes. So I'm looking at person-centered approaches. So we need to be thinking about when there is a time and things are calm, absolutely not minutes after this has happened, but in the future, how you can engage your young person to kind of sit with you and identify a little bit about what's going on. Again, depends on their age slightly and their needs, but you kind of want to involve them in it because then they're taking an active role in their own sort of processes and gaining a bit more regulation. You want to look at how you can kind of identify what's going on. So pick a behaviour, say, you talk about it together and then find a solution, and they might need some guidance on that, but I think they need to feel like they have brought that to you as much as you guide them with it, because that's their independence, isn't it? And that's part of their kind of feeling like they're not just a problem in your situation. And I think that's really important. It needs to be simple and not time consuming. I think if you ask a young person to sit for, you know, an hour and plot out all these things, they're not going to do it.
The behaviours and stuff like that. It's just not going to.
It's beyond, what they're able to do. A really important thing to be aware of and to educate yourself on as well is triggers, because there's going to be a build-up, and it's going to be things you might not have even realised could really trigger someone. It could be something as simple as that they're hungry and we haven't noticed they haven't had a snack for a while. It might be the temperature. It might be how busy the environment is. There's lots of different things. It's really helpful if you can be really familiar with what triggers might be, because you'll slowly start thinking, oh, actually I've seen that's happened before when they were a little bit hangry, and then this happened and this happened, and they build on each other. So you want to be anything that you can identify and remove, you want to do that as early as possible to avoid the conflict kind of rising in the first place.
And I think it's almost worth noting, I mean, for children that are going to have learning disabilities, autism, things like that, their triggers are likely to be very different from what, say, a neurotypical child would have, so it's important to sort of tailor that. If they have you know, things that are definitely going to trigger them, it is really important to record it so that you can actively avoid those things in future. And
it's learning, isn't
the
it? We're all
behaviours
learning. We're all, it helps us. I think having a visual like that in the moment, you're just not going to be like, I'll just get my sheet out and start, hang on, hold your conflict, I've got to write a few, it doesn't work. But if you can just give yourself a bit of time later that night or the next day to just kind of review what happened, your brain will be, you know, you'll be a bit calmer, you'll have your wits about you a bit more, and you can kind of look at it in a better way.
And I think we've touched on it quite heavily, haven't we, about, you know, you want to fix it immediately in that moment. It is really important that you just focus on that connection and that distraction at the time, and go back to that conversation later when you are calm and they are calm. You know, I'm also looking at my notes now. I think it's important when you're having that conversation with the child is to focus on one behaviour, ignore most of it, ignore most of the things that you can tolerate.
You will get with those, that will come.
That will come in time, but you've got to focus on that immediate, most threatening, most harmful, damaging behaviour, which I guess would be the physical aggression. The way that maybe I would do it would be to say in that conversation would be, you know, I can't tolerate that level of violence, so just so you know, this is how I'm going to respond in future. So if it does get to that level, I am going to have to call the police. I really don't want to, but it's in our best interest to keep us both safe.
And I'll give you a warning, so there'll be time for you to come back from that if possible.
And also visual representations are really, really important, especially for children that do have sort of additional needs. Having like a volcano with a scale of 1 to 5, so 1 being, you know, I feel quite calm, I feel quite happy, 5 is an explosion. If they're able to show you on that scale, you know, what they're feeling, it could be a way of, okay, right, I know what I need to do now to respond to how you're feeling, and that can de-escalate a situation.
And when they're calm, they can be writing on that, say, you know, at 3, what can I do when you're at 3, what would help, what do you want me to stop doing? That's something they can actually have some input then, isn't it? You know, at 5, what do you actually want from me? What will help you? Do you want me to just leave the room? Do you want, and I think when they've got their calm, sort of, they're feeling better and they're feeling calm, they can help you find those things. They won't have all the answers, but if they know they've had input on that, when they are in that moment, they will remember that that's, you know, that's what they've asked for, that's their views, and you're listening to them. I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. And these sort of situations, they're really emotional and they have a massive impact on you, but they also have a huge impact on the child. So I think it's really important that afterwards you give gestures regardless of the behavior. You don't hold a grudge. You've got to sort of let it slide, and, you know,
you're the role
gestures
model.
don't have to be, here's a reward because you've calmed down. If it's obvious like that, then they will start acting out to get that response. But if it's, you know, you've both had a really difficult day and you both really enjoy having a takeaway night, like a pizza night or something, don't even say, oh, because we've had a difficult day.
Exactly. It's because I love you, and this is what
and it's just reassurance.
Unconditional love.
Because they'll be feeling guilt and remorse in whatever form they feel it. So
they don't know how to show it, do they?
They're going to be wanting that reassurance. And I think let's have a little look at what else.
I think we were talking about modeling behavior. I think that's really important, isn't it? So they are still the young person and we're still the adult, and we do not know everything, and it's okay to accept that. But if they're going to get anywhere, they're going to need our guidance, and they might not want to think they've had our guidance. They might want to think they've got there on the sort of their own, but just by our sort of tone and our language and our eye contact, and that we're staying calm and focusing on positives, we're not rising to the kind of conflict. It's really, they will be taking that, they'll be learning from that, even if it's a very slow process. I think that's a really important one.
And I think there's different ways that I think your response has a massive impact. You can be making things worse without realizing it. If you are, like Anna said, matching, then it's going to, you know, it's going to cause that to escalate. And also if you're giving in to a demand or a verbal outburst, they are going to recognize that pattern and think, oh right, okay, so when I act like this, I get this, and it will continue. So what you really should try to do, and it's so difficult sometimes, especially when you have kind of been triggered yourself by having someone shouting at you constantly, is just to make sure that you are kind of role modeling the behaviour that you expect to see, which
otherwise how can we expect them to do it?
And I don't
get, it's okay to get
I
that
definitely
wrong
don't get it right. It's so difficult.
Gets that right all the time. Do not sort of judge yourself or give up and think I'll never be able to do this. You can get it wrong 100 times. If you're trying to get it right, that's already an amazing step. So
it's just repetition, isn't it?
Credit, I think, is really important. And I guess just again about the situation that we're in, just remember that we are all in a situation that none of us have been in before, and you know, the government don't know it, the society don't know it, schools don't know it, our support networks don't know it. We're all just finding our feet, and it's okay to do that together. You know, if you're worried about something, reach out, because no one is going to go, well, I know what I'm doing, how can you not? It's just not that situation. So use what you can, connect wherever possible, I think is really important.
I think everyone's trying their hardest, aren't they?
Definitely.
What we've done is in the sort of the description of our video, we've attached a couple of useful links so you can look at the things that we've the things that we've talked about today in more detail, and sort of have a read through, and then you've kind of got your own copies of them, I guess, that you can
you can build your own way that it fits. Definitely.
But we hope you find this useful. You know, it's a really, really difficult time. You know, everyone's doing their best, everyone's trying to find their feet. There's going to be lots of trial and error, but you know, I think
do it together.
Yes,
work together.
Okay,
thank you very much.
Thanks for watching. Thanks.